My name is Aurélien Pétillot. I'm a French-American violist based in Bordeaux, France, and I teach at the Etude Conservatory, which is also in the southwest of France. And I'm extremely happy and honored to be here as part of the American Viola Society Festival to present my second lecture during the festival. Yesterday I talked about works for choir and viola, and today we're going to explore a bit viola works by women composers. Happy International Music Day, and I think it's a wonderful thing to, as we say in France, joyeuse fête de la musique. I think it's a wonderful way to celebrate music by honoring women composers. So as you know, we violists tend to find a lot of difficulties sometimes finding repertoire. It's something that we spend a lot of time doing.
We're supposed to record you.
It's fine with recording as well, no worries.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Should I just think that?
Don't worry. It's going to be easier like this. Okay?
It's perfect. I'm so sorry. Okay, you can send it to me. Thank you.
I will. No worries.
Okay.
So yes, as violists, very often we have to find our own repertoire. That's kind of part of what's ingrained in us. We're told that there's nothing for us to play, and then we start believing it, and then we're told, well, there's maybe 3 or 4 pieces you can play, so we play those pieces. And it's also true for violists. Sometimes they don't know what repertoire they have, and they don't really know where to find it, and it's especially true for works by women composers. So we're going to try to sort things out today. I'm going to talk to you about my research process, where I found the stuff I found to compile a list of 672 works by women composers, including that include the viola. Now, it's not all viola solo, it's not all viola and piano, it also includes concertos, it includes chamber music, many different types of instrumentations, but still, it's something that I'm very happy to share with you, because it's 2024, and it's about time that we do make it a point to program and to showcase women composers. And I'm actually very happy to see quite a lot of change also in this festival with a program that is extremely inclusive. So let's start maybe with where a lot of violists start when they are looking for repertoire. We have what's called the Zeiringer für Literatur for viola. So it's basically the list by Dr. Zeiringer that compiles 14,000 works, and it's obviously a monumental task to put it together like this. It's organized by instruments, or instrumentation I should say, but it's actually really hard to find a woman composer in there unless you go through the whole list, which is obviously very cumbersome and very time-consuming. So the Zeiringer for me wasn't particularly helpful because I couldn't really find the data I was seeking. On the other hand, the Wikipedia list of compositions for viola was helpful. I'll talk to you about some of those lists. What I've not included on this panel is something that is actually essential and where I got a lot of music, is by contacting publishers, by going on publishers' websites and kind of mining information and trying to see if they would have women composer work. That too is kind of cumbersome because you have to go through the whole list and by alphabet, and sometimes it's not clear in the name or in the first name, obviously what gender the composer might be. But nonetheless, it's a good source to start with publishing companies, and we're fortunate enough, and we'll talk about it with the Four Seasons Orchestra website, and Demandez à Clara, we're fortunate to have websites and publishing companies that specialize in works by women composers, whether they're for viola or not. Another thing that was important for me as I was building my database was just interaction with my peers and with my colleagues who would perform works or would know about a work, and they would tell me about it, and eventually I would get to know it and add it to my list. I want to show you a bit how the Wikipedia list is organized. As you can see, it's alphabetized by composer. I don't remember if this one is animated. Yes, it's alphabetized by composer. And same thing, you have to kind of go through the whole website and thinking, oh, could that be a woman composer or is it a male composer? And that too is very time consuming. I have to say that list is very well updated, it's very thorough, there's a lot of things in there that are interesting. So here, for example, I find a woman composer, there's a hyperlink to her Wikipedia page, but that's about all the information we usually have on that. If there's a hyperlink, it's to the Wikipedia page. What I wanted to do was to have hyperlinks that go to composers' page or publishers' pages or recording pages. So you could really find as much information about those works as you might want. And obviously that's one of my goals in my list, is to have it kind of readable and very searchable. This is an essential book in scholarship about women composers. Obviously it's a bit dated. This edition is my edition is the first edition. I think it's from 1987. And if I showed you the inside, it's just highlighted at every page, and I have my own color coding system, and basically I highlighted all the Viola works I could find in the whole dictionary. So I read that book. I actually read the dictionary front to back, like the nerd I am, just to mine a lot of that information there. So this is a little website I was talking to you about before. It's called the Four Seasons Orchestra website. And as you can see, there's quite a nice list of works. It's organized by time period and then by basic ensembles. It goes a bit fast, I know, but you can find it very easily on the Four Seasons Orchestra website, just to give you an idea of how it's laid out. Same thing here. You have good bibliography for websites that you can explore. It's a good starting point, but again, on the list itself, there's not a lot of information. You have the title, you have the composer, and it kind of stops there. So again, to me, it was just a bit limiting for what I was wanting to do. This is more interesting. This is the American Viola Society list of underrepresented composer. As you can see, you have very interesting options. So obviously you can search for female composers. It will give you the whole list of female composers. You have more information, you can click on it. It usually sends you to a publisher, and you have the website as well. Or you can narrow it down by time period. So for example, if I do before 1800, I find this piece by Beatrice Mattei. It's one of the earliest pieces for viola that we have. And then you can do also different searches. For example, here I was looking per country. So I typed randomly Bulgaria, and there were 6 records on that list. And so a lot of things by Dominika Tarkova, and who did write a lot for viola. So this is the kind of presentation I like, and the kind of presentation I'm aiming to achieve. I'm not quite there yet, and I'll show you. I'll show you later. Just wanted to go down the list of repertoire lists where I mine my information. And again, I'm trying to find all those places so I can condense the information and have it available in one list. Ideally, my list, but it's not my list, it's really a list to share, and hopefully it will be a wiki list as well, like the Wikipedia page we saw before. So we talked about the American Viola Society. A few years back, a friend of mine, Rob Deemer, created the Institute for Composer Diversity, which is a fantastic initiative where he had a student, his composition students and music business majors, who compiled a whole database of composer diversity. So whatever country the composer would come from, whatever gender identity they would associate with, whatever time period, it's trying to be as thorough as possible. But like any list, like my list, it's limited and it's always in need of expansion, always in need of updating. And what he has used is a lot of composers' websites, living composers, but there's not a lot of access to things before the 20th century, let's say. This Brahms Irkam, this I don't know if you know advanced yet, but this is a very important thing. So it's a list built by Irkam, which is the Institut de recherche et de création acoustique musique. It's basically the center built by Pierre Boulez, but within that they have this research library called Romp. I don't remember what the acronym is, but you can basically type in any composer or any instrumentation, and it will spew out whatever it finds. It's mainly focused also on 21st century music. It's very useful, but if we want more data, more works for before, it's not necessarily what we need. Présence Compositrice and Demandez à Clara are two women-centric French websites that are very informative. If I remember well, it's hard to actually look by instrumentation. So it contradicts what I was telling you before with the Zaringer, where you can only look by instrumentation. I like things where you can choose. Sometimes you might be looking for a piece for viola, bassoon, and piano, and so you want to type viola, bassoon, and piano. Sometimes you might be looking for a piece by a specific composer, so you type Sofia Gubaidulina, and you have her works. Sometimes you want to see what kind of anniversary you're going to have during a specific year. You can search by date. That's my idea. Which leads me to my personal list. I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of what it looks like now. It's just an Excel sheet, but I wanted to look like the American Viola Society page. So as you can see, it's fully searchable. It's searchable by name, by dates of the composer, by title, by instrumentation, by country, by date of composition, by duration, publishing information, composer website, recording, and I also added a category for theme and programming. So for example, if I'm looking for a piece inspired by bees, I have works about bees, and I can just type bees, and I find bees. If I'm looking for a piece about peace, or about war, or about children, or about a forest, or about folk-inspired music, or about, as many categories as I could think of, you should be able to find that. And that also is important for if you want to program something. As I like to do, I like to have themes with my concepts and with my pedagogical projects with my students. So that's a useful tool to have. So this is kind of bare bones of what it looks like now. It's always work in progress, but nonetheless, I wanted to share it with you. So as part of my research, I kept finding works that I liked and works that I wanted to play, or works I wanted to learn more about. And it turns out that a lot of the works I liked were actually written by violist composers. So we're going to obviously talk about people who are not violists, but this I thought was a good place to start. So you have Clarke, Lillian Fuchs, Katrina Wreede, Nokuthula Ngwenyama, Jessica Meyer, Caroline Shaw, Jocelyn Pook, and oh my god, it will come back. I'm going to talk about her later. I'm just blanking out. But anyway, so we're going to start with those 8 composers and discover them a bit. Obviously, we can't talk about women composers and we can't talk about Viola Repertoire without talking about the fantastic Rebecca Clarke. We all know her Viola Sonata. She's, she wrote a lot for viola and wonderful chamber music pieces, including the Dunca for violin, viola, and piano, Morpheus. We can explore that. I just want to point out one thing that I discovered recently is that you all know the debacle about the Viola Sonata, and she won the Elizabeth Coolidge Prize for composition, and when it was made public that she was a woman, the prize was withdrawn from her, which is obviously a huge insult, I think. What I didn't realize is that she actually stopped composing when she was 35, and so all the works that we know of are before, maybe she was 40, just before the 1930s, and everything else is a life of, sorry?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
1940s.
1940s, yeah.
Yeah.
Vincian is the leading expert on Rebecca Clarke. I don't know if you saw her lecture yesterday. She was comparing manuscripts and all the editions of Rebecca Clarke. So thanks for correcting me. And tell me again if I'm not mistaken, she spent the last years of her life in New York, and her husband didn't want her to compose, and she ended up being a maid for a family in New York, which is astounding when you think of the talent she had and what was left for her to compose. So let's just have a little listen. I'm sorry I made assumptions that maybe you all knew the Rebecca Sonata. Maybe I was wrong. What you just heard was this very fiery beginning, this very virtuosic display on the viola. And stylistically, what's very interesting is, I think harmonically, it's really the perfect marriage between Wagner and Debussy. It's extremely chromatic, as what you would have in Wagner's language. And it's very harmonically dubious and unstable, as you would have with what we call the Impressionist composers. So and with that, she managed to find her own style that we do find some characteristics throughout her works that I think are really beautiful. We're just going to listen a little bit to her Passacaglia, an old English tune. This is something I personally use a lot with my students. It explores. I think it's always interesting to start with folk music when we can. Obviously, I live in France, so we don't have the same tradition of those English tunes, but somehow, still, it's something they can sing, they can connect to, and there's something very pure, I think, in folk music that I like to do. So here you have basically character pieces that allow you to explore different emotions, different types of legatos, different types of vibrato. They're extremely expressive and interesting. So this is just the Passacaglia on an English tune, and then you have the English suite and all that. So this is the Passacaglia on an English tune. Similar to Rebecca Clarke, we can't talk about viola, we can't talk about women composers without talking about Lillian Fuchs, a phenomenal pedagogue, one of the, if not the first artist to record the Bach suites on viola. Is that correct, or was it many?
Yes, including the sixth suite, which she did not do scordatura, and which is almost impossible.
Yeah, she did it all in nosebleed sections on the viola. So her main works for the viola, the 12 caprices, the Sonata Pastorale, the 16 fantasy etudes, and the 15 characteristic etudes. Those to me are not at all, just random etudes you would have like Kreutzer that can be, pretty square and pretty, focused on one little technical aspect. Those to me are concert pieces. They're like Chopin etudes or Paganini caprices. They're really that level of playing. Now we're going to talk about Katrina Wreede, who is with us during this festival, and it's this is somebody very important to me because I discovered her works pretty early on in my teaching careers, and I use her Viola Works daily with my students and with myself. It's a set of scales and modes. You have jazz modes as well. She uses scale patterns that then she transfers into orchestral excerpts training. It's just a brilliantly organized book. So I use that a lot with my students. She wrote a lot of works for viola ensembles, including the one for the festival that most of the festival attendees are working on right now. In Praise of August Sundogs it's actually a really fun piece. It kind of feels like a Appalachian Spring in many ways. It has that kind of lightness, that kind of luminosity, but also some interesting sound effects. So she has some violas to put a sheet of tin foil under the fingerboard, so it gives this rattle sound or this kind of like buzz to the sound. It's not for the whole piece, but it's actually quite interesting. And then she's very interested in diverse types of music that she can include in her own compositional style. So you have elements of jazz, you have elements of bluegrass, and tango, among other things. So we're just going to explore. Sorry.
Brilliant. She has lectured with us at previous viola congresses on using the viola as a jazz instrument.
Yeah, and she does a lot of that, and it's just very interesting because she uses a lot of improvisation in her approach to the viola, and often her works are retranscribed improvisations. So it's a mix of improvisation and obviously everything is written, but also a mix of styles. So you can have something that sounds like a lovely lyrical Brahms line, and suddenly you'll have a weird 5/8, 7/16 going on, and a little Bartokian rhythm. And so she likes to fuse those elements, and jazz is one of those. But I wasn't there to listen to her lecture, so but we'll talk more. I'd love to hear more about that. But you'll hear the versatility of her style. So that's Romp. This is for 4 violas. So it gives you an idea, right? And tango. And she's Katrina Wreede is one of the few composers who's featured on both my repertoire lists. She wrote a piece for choir and viola called Kitty Play, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just like little kittens playing together, where the young violists can also sing. It's lovely, and obviously she's part of this lecture as well. Now we have the trailblazing light that is Nokuthula Ngwenyama. As you might know, I don't know if you follow her career, but she started as a Primrose winner, Primrose competition winner. She became a very established, very important composer that's been commissioned all around the world now. So she wrote a lot for viola. Obviously, this is just a limited list. And she's working on a second concerto now. She already had written one concerto. Her viola ensembles are particularly fun to play, particularly fun to program. Most of her works are inspired by the extra musical elements. So I think Tula is a storyteller at heart, and a lot of her works are extremely expressive, extremely evocative. And so you'll get to hear that, especially in Sonor and Storm, which I think is my next slide. Yeah. So this is inspired by the desert when she was living in Arizona, and what it meant to her, and the heat and the sand and the wind and very interesting piece, I think, and as you heard, she's her voicing, her counterpoint is super interesting. She makes it sound like there's maybe guitar strumming and at least several violas playing, but just the almost chomping and the all those spiccato violage are pretty interesting. Jessica Meyer, sorry.
May I break in for just a second? Nokuthula Ngwenyama was the youngest Primrose winner at 16.
As we say in France, ça calme. It basically puts you back in your place. It quiets you down, literally. So Jessica Meyer, I don't know if you heard her showcase recital the other day, which, I mean, I felt that the walls just tremble. I felt the whole edifice would crumble with her energy and her vitality. As you heard, she's not just a fantastic violist who explores every possible sound she can create on her instrument. She's a very inventive composer. She wrote a lot for viola. A lot of her works are for viola and loop pedal, including Swerve that you heard the other day that we're going to listen to again. Works on scordatura viola that we're going to listen to as well. And she just premiered just a few months back her Gaia viola concerto inspired by Greek mythology, and it's basically a whole myth about creation. Absolutely gorgeous concerto. A lot of vocal chamber music, and I was fortunate enough to spend a bit of time with her in the past few days, and she was telling me about her love for poetry and about her ideas of and her ideals of sound and trying to emulate the voice as often as possible. And obviously when I told her that I'm married to a contralto and that we're seeking the same thing when we were together, she talked to me about some of her pieces, some that are in the works, including the concerto for mezzo-soprano, viola, and choir. Look at that. So that obviously is very promising and inspiring. And then obviously, beyond the viola ensembles, this is the largest viola ensemble she wrote. The Fire actually kindled for 8 violas. And the depth of light just beyond her skin. This is, I think, one of her most poetic works. It's absolutely luminous. It's transparent. The blend of the instruments is almost like, merging clouds. It's really beautiful. I don't have a recording to share with you today, but I have this. So this is one of the works she played the other day with loop pedals. I told Jessica the other day that what really impresses me is how bold and fearless she is. There's nothing that stops her, and you felt her energy, you felt how dynamite she was, and I told her that she could play anything she wanted in the whole repertoire world of viola, but she found her voice, and her voice is so unique and so incredibly powerful and incredibly beautiful. So it was the first time I heard her live. I loved every minute of it, and it was fantastic.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side.
And around.
Through the middle.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side.
And around.
Through the middle.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side.
To the side.
And around and around.
And around and around
and around through the middle.
To the side. 2, 3, 4,
And
5,
across. 6, 7, 8.
Through the midpoint.
2,
the line drawn from
3,
the
Left
4,
side. Element left and around and around.
And around and around.
Element left and around and around. You're going to tell me there's no beyond there. You're
absolutely right. There's no viola in there. But I wanted to show you Caroline Shaw with her Pulitzer Prize winning work, Partita for 8 Voices, because something that we're going to find in, it's ideas we're going to find in a lot for Viola Works. She's a violist herself, and the idea is that she takes inspiration from the past. She names that work Partita. All the movements are dance-like movements. She has Bachian counterpoint, but she also has influences of folk music and pop music. That type of singing is something that she heard in Sardinia, that she wanted to explore, those very nasal, very throaty types of voices, and eventually it merges into more classical singing. And so, since she's a violist and she's a very good composer, she actually wrote a lot for viola. What she does often, as Jessica Meyer uses loop pedals, Caroline Shaw uses the voice. So there are several pieces that she writes for the viola to play and sing at the same time. So the piece I'm going to play for you is In Manus Tua, and she's the one playing her own work. And so that piece that you just heard is based on a ground bass by John Dowland, and it's a bit like in the Britain Lacrimé, where we actually hear the full theme pretty much at the end of the piece, so that it's a kind of a reconstruction of the theme throughout the piece. I think it's a pretty interesting process. Also about Caroline Shaw, she's the youngest Pulitzer Prize winner, and the Pulitzer Prize is it's a really big deal, and she's a Grammy winner, and she's really one of the main living composers we have now. We're gonna jump across the pond a little bit into England. This is Jocelyn Pook, and you might not know that you know her, but I can guarantee you know her. For simple reason, for those of us who are more old than you are, there was a movie that came out about 30 years ago called Eyes Wide Shut. It was the last movie by Stanley Kubrick, and if you know the movie, you know the movie. And there's a scene that I'll play for you, which is kind of an initiation rite. There's something that happens. There's people that are clothed. We don't really know what's happening, but we know it's weird and it feels strange. So that music to that scene is actually composed by Jocelyn Pook. So I'm going to play a little bit of an excerpt of that, so you enter her sound world, and then I'll talk about her viola works. She also wrote other scores for movies the Al Pacino Merchant of Venice, that was her full score, and also Martin Scorsese Gangs of New York. Most of her the score is hers.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Password, sir?
Fidelia.
Thank you, sir.
You hear some pretty layered music. You have her playing the viola. You have this very strange voice that speaks a language that is not very clear, and I'll talk to you about that later. And in other works that you're going to hear, you hear nature elements. There's a lot of work on the sound itself, on silence, on space, and the manipulation of sound. And so in the voice you just heard, what she does a lot is she has singers sing a melody, and then she spins it backward, and she plays it backwards, so in retrograde, basically. And so she has two ways of doing it. Either singers sing a text that's, let's say, forward, Alleluia, hello, how are you doing? Glad to see you. And then she plays it backward and sounds something like that. Or she has them sing the text that's already backwards, so then when she plays it backwards, it actually sounds forwards, but weird. So it's like, how are you today? If you've seen Twin Peaks and you've seen the Red Room, if you remember that, the guy who speaks kind of sounds a bit like that. So the manipulation of sound mixed with the viola, mixed with a lot of folk music. In this excerpt I'm going to play for you, it's called Yellow Fever Song, and she uses Bulgarian choirs, women choirs, mixed with the viola, mixed with elements of nature, birds, wind, water, and voices forwards and backwards. We need to move on to Sally Beamish, which is the composer I forgot to mention earlier. This is from her website. This is just a scrolling list of everything she wrote, whether it's concertos, she wrote for solo viola, chamber music, multi-viola works. So she's not only a very prolific performer, as you see, she's an incredibly prolific composer, and most of what she writes is for viola. The list goes on. It's things with voice, things with different instruments. I think one of her concertos, the Seafarer, should be part of standard concerto rep. It should be taught in conservatories. It's really one of the most vibrant and expressive concertos I've heard in the past few years. So I just wanted to share, out of all the pieces she wrote, I wanted to share that little tidbit of concerto with you. Now we're going to move back a bit in the past. I mentioned earlier that one of our first works for viola and harpsichord is by Beatrice Mattei from 1740. We have also works by Princess Amalia from Prussia. We don't really have recordings of those, so I couldn't really share them with you. But the next best thing is one of our first classical works by a woman composer, by a composer named Hélène Liebmann, who was a German Jew living in France in the 18th century, which is already quite remarkable to have survived that, I think, considering how anti-Semitic France was at the time. It's a really beautiful classical piece, very much in the style of Mozart. I've given this to some of my students as an alternative sometimes to the Sinfonia Concertante or the violin and viola duets. So it's still classical style, but by a woman composer. I've actually tested the theory with some students, with some colleagues, that, people will tell you, well, it's a woman composer, and of course it's a woman composer. It sounds like a woman composer, or it's like this, or it's like that. But I've put it to the test. I've played that piece, and I played a piece by Mozart, and I played, I would do pairings like this. I would tell them, who do you think it is? What do you think it is? Undeniably, they would say, oh, well, it has to be, a men's piece, or it has to be a woman's piece. They were always wrong for everything. So you play something that's pretty strong and pretty powerful, and they tell you it's a man, and then you play something more piano and more legato, and they tell you it's a woman, and they were wrong all the time. So you never hear whether it's a woman or a man. You never hear, you always hear the argument like, oh, well, they're not famous, those women composers, so why program them? But they're not famous because you don't program them. So it's the other way around that you should think about it. We know Beethoven Ninth because it's a genius piece, but it's also because it's been performed 600 times a year for the past 200 years. Whereas there are operas by women composers, symphonies and concertos that are just not performed because they're women composers. Now, also, I'm perfectly aware of the irony that I'm here, a man presenting about women composers. I know there's some mansplaining in there, and I apologize, but I just wanted to showcase a lot of those works that I do think are important. We're going to finish with just a couple of pieces. I want to share with you a piece that I played in a recital just 2 months back. It's a piece by Ukrainian composer Polina Nazaykinskaya, here played by Brett Dubner. And it's, to me, the perfect piece ever to play. It's one of my favorite pieces to play. It's both lyrical and virtuosic. It's extremely demanding, but also lavish and epic and lush and vibrant.